text at the party. Pauper. I brought Pauper text at the party.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 38 of the PDH Pod, the one and only Magic the Gathering podcast dedicated to the total exploration of the Pauper Commander format. I am your host, Brad Drac V, and let's see what my co-hosts from the East Coast are up to first. Dave the Alcadron Vader, how's your Burger King crown?
I've upgraded to a slightly more sturdy plastic one that I use for the Monarch.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's high quality.
Good deal, good deal. Well, how was your week?
My week was really good. I've been reflecting on the Triarch Praetorian game that we played a while ago.
Yes.
And how much fun.
Very strong.
How much fun I've had with the Triarch Praetorian, and aside from him, how much fun I've had with the Karian Infiltrator. And I've decided that, how much fun I've had with the Warhammer Precons as a unit. I decided I needed Warhammer PDH Precons. And so I have blue and black covered. I have found uncommon creatures in white, red, and green that I'm really excited to build decks for, so that I can have one of each color, and I can just pass them out and force people to play Warhammer games with me in PDH. And I got the deck lists all set. I am all of them seem really interesting. They're not all great, but they're all interesting and fun to play and have cool gimmicks that are keeping them distinct and from the rest of my deck. So I've been riding that high all week long. I'm constantly
That's amazing. It's kind of the first I've heard of it too, so that sounds really fun.
I'm having a great time with it, just poring over Mox Fields, what can I tweak, what can I edit, what cards am I missing? Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a good time writing the new deck high.
It's new deck high times 3.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, up next we have our resident PDH PhD, Liam, who's been on a sort of a technological archaeology dig here with your devices. How's that going?
Yeah, I don't get it, Brad. Seriously, I'm the one that my family calls when the technology stops working. I teach a technology class. I don't teach a technology. I teach 6 technology classes. Why I can't get this dang microphone to work, I have absolutely no idea. So I dug out a very old gaming laptop. Well, in 2008, it would have been considered a gaming laptop. In 2023, It's just considered a laptop.
Yeah, it's just a laptop.
And I've discovered that the battery may need replaced. But hopefully that laptop will maybe solve some of the issues that we're having with this mic. If not, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like you are the man for the case.
Yeah, I really don't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, I feel like we've exhausted most of our avenues, so it's about to be back in Blue's hands here shortly.
Yep.
All right, well, good deal.
How are you doing,
before
Brad?
we get on to the... Oh, yes, I forgot. I am doing well. I'm also sort of writing the new deck high, but it's not times 3. It's not with cool 40K or anything like that. After our stream on Monday, where the whole pod was there with Robert, I played OG and it did pretty well. I'm sort of addicted to that deck, and I kind of secretly have been for a long time. I just didn't know what to do with it, and then I played it a couple times and it was terrible, and then I practiced the deck. I rarely ever, even when I was a competitive player, I never practiced decks. But I practiced this one, and it obviously turned out in my favor. And I've just been I have this whole 2 paragraphs written on my phone on the note app of what cards to change and why, what cards are coming out, what cards are going in. And I've literally never done that with decks before. So I don't know what's got me possessed to work on this OG deck of all decks, but that's kind of where I've been on my deck journey in the last few days.
You got the bug. There's no escaping now.
I know. It is a bug, too. It's definitely bit me. But other than that, it's been pretty good. Just work, family, all that kind of stuff. So I think we can move on to a little bit of housekeeping before we get to the main topic. And if you like the show and you like what we're doing here and you want to hear about why Slowpoke is Dave's avatar literally everywhere, why don't you consider becoming a patron for literally 25 cents an episode. It starts about $1 a month. You get access to the PDH Pod Discord, where you can chat up your decks, chat with the crew, chat with other patron family members, that sort of thing. You also get a weekly pre-show, usually weekly. We try to get one out there every week, and it's sort of like almost like another full bonus podcast every week, where we just sort of catch up, talk about whatever comes up, fiddle with our settings, do all this kind of stuff. So you get that as well, and then you get early access to the episode if that's your thing too. That usually comes out the night before, some 12, 15 hours before it hits the mainstream airwaves, if you will. So if you like that, you get access to that as well. And then check out the YouTube channel. I've got some things, some pokers in the fire, as people say. I think people say that. I'm not totally sure.
I heard irons.
Irons in the fire. That's it. So I've got some irons in the fire for some ideas for the YouTube channel. So keep an eye out for that coming up shortly. And then as far as content goes, just check out the Saturday and Monday streams on Twitch over at twitch.tv/thepdhpod. And I forgot to give the patron address. It's just patron.com/thepdhpod. So I will throw it back over to Liam, see if we've got anything for MTG this week.
Yeah, this week in MTG is fascinating and different.
Yeah.
Someone who works in a landfill in Texas found MTG codes, and you might be like, well,
yeah, a couple.
Yeah, and you might be like, well, Liam, people throw MTG codes away all the time. Well, as unfortunate as that is, these were not loose MTG codes. These were sealed product.
Yes.
It was sealed product of specifically Modern Horizons 2. And it was about 6 pallets worth.
Yeah, not 6 packs.
Yeah,
six pallets.
Not 6 packs. And to put it in perspective, they were the 3 draft booster draft packs you get at like Walmart or Target or whatever.
Yeah, you buy the 3 at a time. Yep.
And in a box of those, I think someone said there were like 10 or 12. And then there are 8 of those boxes to a larger case. And then there are, I think it was 8 cases to one of the boxes that goes on a pallet. Mm-hmm. Something like that. I can't remember what the exact numbers were. But it was...
I want to say I kept hearing about $200,000 worth of sealed product.
Oh, what?
Just in a landfill.
The estimation was about $200,000 to $250,000 worth of sealed product. And then there was another post later that included cards from Unfinity, Secret Lair, and Magic 30. But I'm not sure about the validity of that post. I do know the Modern Horizons 2 post was valid. And people who found out where this landfill was quickly went dumpster diving.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I can imagine them like cartoon style just running out of the dumpster, like just arms full of packs and loose cards. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that and read that, and made me a little sad, but yeah.
And then also too, I don't know if you heard, or was this part of what you were mentioning a minute ago, that they also found, supposedly, I don't know the validity of this one either, but supposedly someone found in another landfill, or maybe the same landfill, uncut foil sheets from Lord of the Rings.
Yes, those were actually not from a landfill. Those were from those were in the factory. The factory that is the factory that is currently printing and producing the Lord of the Rings set. Someone found printed off uncut sheets that were trashed. I imagine there was some kind of printing error that was the reason, but they apparently were not disposed of the usual way. They were very literally just tossed in a bag and thrown out.
Yeah, like the one top corner was all busted up, and that was about it.
Yeah, so we got 2 early looks at one at Frodo and one at one of the Aragon cards. So if you're interested in that, go dig around for those. But
I'll wait for spoilers.
Yeah, for sure.
I only know what cards they were because a friend shared them into a group chat that I'm in. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you what the cards do. I saw the names and ignored it.
I don't think, I was not gravitated towards the leaks either. I thought it was interesting. I always find it interesting when whole sheets or whatever get spoiled, but I didn't go look at them.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
What about you, Dave? If someone told you, hey, I work at a landfill and there's a bunch of Magic cards just sitting out in the festering piles of trash, I would go get it.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I would have come up sick in the second half of my day and
Oh, for sure.
found that.
And it was like you hear about it and you're like, oh, that's a lot. And then you see the pictures and you're like, oh my God, it's just boxes upon boxes upon boxes, like sealed. Like, you know how they'll like shrink wrap or, like plastic wrap around a pallet of stuff. It was just like that, just laying in the landfill.
It's like I'll worry about the smell and the trash juices in my car later.
Yeah, later. Oh, that's crazy. That's hilarious. Every year something crazy like that happens.
I don't think I could fit a pallet of Magic cards in my car. I think that would
See,
let alone 6 whole pallets.
Here's the fascinating part is why did this dude post it online? I feel like the person who posted it online either doesn't play Magic or is very new and doesn't understand the value. Because that to me is just something that you literally just pull it out of the landfill and
put it in your car.
Put it in your car and just start selling it box by box.
Yeah. 100%. Take it to your LGS and get store credit or something.
Oh,
if you can't, if you don't feel like selling. And people are trying to speculate where they came from. Did a Target just dump excess inventory? Because there was from what I heard, there was no sign of water damage. So it wasn't a write-off or something somewhere. Did it come from a distributor? Who knows?
My wife and I used to watch this show called it wasn't Sherlock. Sherlock's the BBC one. I think it was Elementary, the one with Lucy. Yeah. There was an episode of that about this kind of thing happening where there's supposedly this old Atari or Nintendo cartridge that's widely believed to be the worst game ever made. So they landfilled 200 copies, and now it's a collector's item. That was the premise, and someone died in the process of trying to dig this stuff up, and Sherlock was talking to him, and he was like, you're a suspect because we think that you maybe found this thing and killed him over this location. He's like, nope, not me. Let me show you my shed. And he just had already found it 10 years ago and dug it all up, did a secret in a shed, and was drip feeding them to the public because that's how they're worth money. You don't just unload the whole thing. Not posting it on Instagram so that the whole world knows about it. That's the technique.
Oh, great. And there were Modern Horizons too. That's not a cheap set.
No, it's not.
Craziness. But anyway, I think we got something more interesting to talk about this week.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about an important aspect of deck building, game playing, strategy having, and that is the concept of card advantage. This is one of the topics it's sort of evolved as the game has evolved. It's changed in appearance and definitions quite a few times over the decades. I think we should just jump right in. So Dave, what the heck even is card advantage?
I'm delighted to tell you about card advantage. Card advantage is one of those fun words that's a little bit nebulous, and I think one of the reasons it's nebulous is that the definition has changed pretty dramatically over the years. So I'm gonna start off by telling you what card advantage used to mean 30 years ago.
Right.
And we'll talk about how that's changed over the last several decades. The classic original definition of card advantage was about how to get ahead of your opponent in terms of the cards you are spending and the cards that you still have available. So it was pretty much basically entirely down to play decisions within how you are choosing to play the game. And it was stuff if you cast a terror, tears 1 and a black, destroys a creature, essentially. If you cast a terror to destroy someone's hill giant, that's card neutral because you have spent a card from your hand and you have deleted a card from their board. So you're both down 1 card. That's neutral.
Makes sense to me.
Yep. If you spend a terror to destroy an enchanted hill giant, a hill giant with giant strength, now that's card advantage because you are spending 1 of your cards to destroy 2 of your opponents.
Mm-hmm. And it's not, if you don't mind if I interrupt.
Yeah, please.
It's not necessarily in the show notes, but that's one thing that's sort of I know Morrow talks about it a lot. Everybody talks about it a lot. It's just something that's sort of baked into the game, and that is one of the reasons auras specifically are so bad.
Yes.
Because you can just get blown out. A heroic deck, you go to target your Laguna Band Trailblazer and they cast it down. You just lost the enchantment you're casting, the creature, and probably 5 auras that were already on that creature.
Yeah. You have
to 1 removal spell.
Auras are all about getting 1, which is why they're Wizards has been doing
an inherently card disadvantage.
Right. Wizards has been doing a pretty good job lately of making them like better, like auras that have an ETB, or like auras that try to replace themselves, or are just really like sticky fingers.
Yes.
Is a great
Excellent one.
example. Like it's an aura that you put on a creature, and then when the creature dies, you draw a card. So like if you
Yep.
do get blown out, if someone tears your guy, like it's not exactly the 2-for-1 because the sticky fingers has replaced itself.
Right. Or like Cartouche of Solidarity gives you a little 1/1 with Vigilance, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I know that one's a little older, but yeah.
Yeah, so they're doing better with auras now, but yeah, like auras were a spectacular example of how to card advantage in 90s Magic. You play the aura, someone tears your creature, you just got 2-for-1, or if you're the one doing the terror, you're 2-for-1ing them. That was
Feels good.
the essence of card advantage, and like that's why like even in the 90s we had some auras that were pretty good at this, like something with Rancor. Like if your Hill Giant has Rancor on it and you cast a terror, that's back to card neutral. You're spending your terror, you're killing the Hill Giant. They get Rancor back. So it's still only one card for one card. That's card neutral. That's not card advantage.
Right.
It's probably board state advantage. It's wise. You should do that, but it's not card advantage. Or alternatively, if you try to terror the thing and your terror gets counterspelled, that's also card neutral. You've lost your terror, they've lost their counterspell, you're both down one. Perfectly neutral.
Sure.
Card advantage gets really fun when you're talking about things like board wipes. So if you have like a Wrath of God and you're going to cast it, if it destroys 2 of your creatures and 2 of your opponent's creatures, that's card disadvantage.
Yep, that's just simple math.
Simple math. You have lost 3 cards.
3.
Your 2 creatures and the Wrath of God is now gone from your hand. They have lost 2 creatures. You're down 1. And like it's, yep. I'm not saying it's a bad idea to do that. If your 2 creatures are Grizzly Bears and their 2 creatures are Sarah Angel and Shivan Dragon, you need to do that.
Yeah, you need to do it. Yep.
It's card disadvantage. You are down a card compared to where they are. This also used to come up a lot in blocking. If you had a 5/5 and you attacked with it, it got blocked by 3 Grizzly Bears. That's card advantage for you. You are killing 2 of their cards for your 1. That sort of thing. Card advantage is an excellent tool with which you can explain to new players why chump blocking is usually a bad idea. So like when I would teach people Magic, they were very, very protective of their life totals. If I was attacking them with a Hill Giant, over and over again, they would block with their Llanowar Elves because they didn't want to take 3. Mm-hmm. That is massive card disadvantage. You're sacrificing your Elves, and I'm not losing any cards.
At all, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're just sacrificing your Elves to not take 3 damage. Like don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
If you have 20 life, 19 of it is a resource. Only the last one matters. You can spend 3 of it to keep your Elves alive. Don't.
Because if go ahead.
No, I was just don't card disadvantage yourself like that. Just take the damage.
Yeah, don't disadvantage yourself.
Yeah.
If variance is shining upon you that day, that Llanowar Elf is going to make up that 3 life later in the game.
Yeah.
By producing mana, helping you cast bigger threats, that sort of thing.
Exactly. So, to summarize this, ye old card advantage was a lens that players used to evaluate gameplay decisions. With an interest in, you wanted to try to become a better Magic player, to become a skilled Magic player, you needed to be evaluating these in-game decisions based on how to maximize your card for card efficiency compared to your opponents. Especially with regards to removal and board state and like your resources. That's what card advantage meant in 1997.
Back in ye old days.
Ye olden days. It has changed substantially. So I'm gonna pass things back to Brad so he can tell us about modern card advantage.
Yeah, the modern way we do things now. Moving away from ye olden times definition of card advantage. Over the years, the operational definition of card advantage has shifted to mean spells that give you access to additional cards. Let you look at them, let you put them in your hand, that sort of thing. It's not really about efficient removal anymore. It's not about board states or how to assess in-game decisions. Nowadays, it's used to refer to specific cards in deck building decisions so that you have cards in your hand all the time, or more cards in your hand than you should have. It still isn't quite how we're going to define card advantage, but it is a little bit closer. It's worth taking a look at to provide sort of a framework for what comes next and to sort of bridge it to what came before, sort of in the middle. And I guess just the next logical step would be to give some examples of modern card advantage. If we move into like the 2000s, 2010s, that sort of thing, get out of the 90s, take a card like Divination. It is 2 and a blue. Everybody knows that it's a limited all-star. It costs you 1 card, but it draws you 2.
I think it's originally from 2010. I think the first divination was M10.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah.
There it is. M10, and then Dark Ascension. Yeah, M11 or Salvat 2011. M12 Dark Ascension. Yep. I knew it went back further, like way further, obviously, than M19, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, basically, Divination is card advantage. Sure, it costs you a card, but it puts 2 of them into your hand. So that's your card positive. You're +1 in total, so that is good. Similar to that would be evoking a Muldrifter, something everyone knows, something everyone loves to do. And it's the same, pretty much the same as Divination. You are positive 1 card. Casting a Muldrifter is better, arguably better, since you're not actually losing the card that you're casting, and many times you're gaining that 2/2 flyer. Deep Analysis is another great one. It's quickly becoming a card. I didn't used to play with it a lot, but I'm really warming up to it lately. The more blue I play in PDH, the more I love it. So casting a Deep Analysis from your hand is just +1, kind of like Divination. Casting it from your graveyard, you could almost look at it like you're up 2 cards, since you're not having to lose another one from your hand to do so. So it's very powerful if your graveyard is still intact by the time you want to cast that Deep Analysis. It's a little fragile. Yeah, graveyards are always on thin ice in our format, so we got some good graveyard hate at common.
If you can pull it off, though, the Deep Analysis from the yard that's a monster play. For only 2 mana,
yeah.
The card is berserk.
Yeah, it just feels good. And it's funny you said that too, kind of relating to what you were talking about a minute ago. You're like, oh yeah, if you want to flash that back, it's so powerful, it's just 2 mana. Technically 2 mana and 3 life, but who cares about the 3 life?
The life is a resource.
You're not casting it, you're not flashing it back when you're at 2 life, but you'll do it when you're at 5 or 6. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Only the last life point matters.
Exactly. Another very powerful, very popular one is Treasure Cruise. It's often +2 in your hand. You spend 1 card from your hand to get 3 brand new ones. That's awesome. Sometimes the math on that one gets a little tricky. Like, for example, if you delve away a Deep Analysis to pay for Treasure Cruise, you're losing the flashback ability of Deep Analysis, and more than just 1 card from your hand. You're losing resources from your graveyard as well. So always be cognizant of your Treasure Cruises, your Gurmag Anglers, your what's the Sultai one? The Delve creature. He's like a gigantic flyer. I think it's Sultai something.
I don't know the fly. Oh, is there a bird? The 3/3, 6 mana 3/3.
Sultai Scavenger.
That's
yep,
the one.
6 mana 3/3.
The Vulture Kid. Yeah.
Yep, the Vulture Kid. Yep, Bird Warrior. So yeah, just be cognizant of those. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. I mean, you don't want to not cast a Treasure Cruise just so you can keep your Deep Analysis in the yard. But it is something to think about. The point to all of this, though, is really the math can get squirrely, like super fast. And squirrely math is bad news for any deck builder that's trying to put together decks and struggling to choose which cards go into their card advantage slots. We don't have 36 lands and 64 card advantage slots. You usually have anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe 12, depending on the deck you're playing. Like, we just don't have a ton of slots for card advantage, so you have to be picky about it. So make your choices well. But it is great news for a bunch of podcasters who are positioned to profit from this confusion by creating a whole episode dedicated to talking about it. So what are you gonna do?
That's
what we're here for. All right.
Yeah, the math on these can get weird. Like when you're trying to evaluate like what's better, Deep Analysis or Muldrifter. Like if you're choosing between those two, like the you can't just be like, well, one puts more cards into my hand than the other, like, because you can't just do the +1s. Like you have to consider what are the likelihood I'm gonna flicker the Muldrifter. Like,
right,
how likely
exactly.
is it that I'm gonna draw into it late and I'm gonna need the 2/2 flyer to get Monarch or Initiative? Like, how likely am I to delve away the deep analysis or for it to get exiled from the graveyard before I can use it the second time? Or like how likely am I to discard the deep analysis to something else so I can just skip the first use and just hit that graveyard ability for the 2 mana? Like there's the calculus involved goes nuts.
Sure. It goes squirrely.
It goes
as they say.
squirrely, as the mathematicians say.
One thing I was kind of thinking about too, and I don't think we need to go down this rabbit hole, but is the buyback mechanic, would you consider that card advantage?
Absolutely. I think
Yes.
I think I put a handful of examples of those down at the bottom.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, because I always go back and forth on those. Like I was just talking a minute ago, I was talking about playing OG and how much fun I've had with it. I have Recruit the Worthy in there.
Recruit the Worthy's a powerhouse. That card is so underplayed, underrated.
It is. It really is. Maybe it was just the particular pod we had going, the particular game we had going. On any of my opponent's turns, I never wanted to drop 4 mana.
Right.
Because that would cut into my being able to cast a second spell that turn, sort of thing. But I run into the same problems when I've got a slot or 2 available, and I'm like, Whisper of the Muse, that's a good card. Like,
yeah.
But how often, mathematically, am I going to have the mana to flash it back every single time? It's those sort of things that you have to think about that I'm not great at, like, deciphering. But they all play into it.
The thing that I love most about Recruit is that you don't. It's not always the 4-drop. Like when you need to keep it into your hand so that you can continue doing things late game. Like if you're running out of resources, it's just such an easy way to cast 2 or 3 spells a turn cycle by itself. But like if you got a full grip and you're sitting there like I don't need to buy this. Like I've got 6 other spells I can cast. I can trigger OG over and over again with just this. It's just an instant speed 1/1 body that helps you trigger OG, and then you ignore it and move on. Like you don't have to dedicate the 1 to it or the 4 to it. You can just drop it for 1 and forget about it.
Yeah, and I think that's what I end up doing because I drew it. I can't remember if it was in my opening hand or I drew it early, like turn 2, turn 3, and I don't think I cast it. And I didn't even buy it back when I cast it. I just used it as a single mana spell so I could cast 2 spells in a turn. And I don't think I cast it till like second to last turn of the game, so we were probably turn 10 plus.
Yeah.
So just had to time it right and figure out what I wanted. Like you were saying, figure out what I wanted to do with it, pretty much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that it offers that flexibility is really strong.
Yeah, it's super good. Like, granted, I didn't get to buy it back, but it was a 1 mana 1/1 at instant speed.
Yeah.
So can't beat that. All right, but back to the modern card advantage way of thinking. After everything I was talking about, you're probably like, dude, Brett, what are you talking about? Isn't it weird that literally every single one of your examples is mono blue?
Divination.
And dear listeners,
analysis, treasure cruise.
It's weird, right? They're all blue.
All blue.
How crazy is that? That is a great question, dear listener. Blue makes pretty much the most accessible examples, but a huge part of today's episode is going to be getting into how all the various and sundry colors of Magic achieve card advantage in their own weird ways. It's not always about take card from library, put card into your hand. That's sort of the modern way of thinking, but that's not how every color accomplishes it. If I can.
Spoilers. Some of the colors accomplish this with buyback.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't want
So to talk about that, we're going to go even further from the classic definition of card advantage. We're going to go into the postmodern era of card advantage with Liam. What do you got?
Heck yeah. So, the postmodern version of card advantage. This is the kind of card advantage that we're mostly going to be talking about today. It isn't directly inherently based in math or about getting more cards in your hand. Because, like we've talked about, ideally, cards that you have access to anywhere are card advantage in the postmodern definition. So, dedicated listeners to the pod will recognize that the best way to describe this postmodern conception of card advantage is simply Pillar 3. How to not run out of gas.
It's such a good pillar.
I love Pillar 3.
Pillar 3 is so good. Some youngins might say that Pillar 3 is gas.
I see what you did there.
Haha, yeah. All right. So, like I said, this isn't strictly about having cards in hand anymore, though that is certainly part of it, right? We don't completely discount the hand, but we're talking about cards in graveyard, cards that you might somehow be able to access in exile, Cards that are on the battlefield, cards that are still in your library. How do they count towards card advantage? So it's about having available plays, things to spend your mana on so that it's not going to waste. You want to make a meaningful impact in the late game, and the way that you make a meaningful impact in the late game is by having no wasted mana anywhere. No one likes dead drawing land number 11, 12, 15, right? When you're hellbent on turn 13 and you need an answer, seeing land number 27 is not going to make you happy.
Right? Just feels bad.
Honestly, that's what was happening Monday with my Ornithopter deck. Card advantage at its core is all about the different ways you can avoid drawing land number 35. All right? Exploring that is going to take us far beyond the color blue and divination. We're going to be looking at it color by color today, but in this postmodern definition, the most important thing to realize is that card advantage is not just what's about in your hand, it's about what you have access to play.
Yep. And I think part of what you were just saying sort of calls back to the last episode where, being aggressive in green doesn't just mean like beating face on turns 1, 2, and 3 or 2, 3, and 4. It's also about having 8 mana late in the game to pump into your invokers, sort of thing. So I think that's a very good explanation. And I like postmodern stuff, so. All right, I think we're going to jump into the colors here. I think you're up, Dave. What do you got for white?
I am going to tell you how white is going to accomplish card advantage. I'm really glad that we're doing white first, right after Liam's excellent description of postmodern card advantage. Because white does not have a bunch of cards that sort of archetypically align with the standard issue divination, like put more cards in your hand thing.
Right.
White is going to rely hard on stuff like Recruit the Worthy to make sure that it continues to have plays that'll impact the game in the late game. It's going to rely a little bit. I mean, not just Recruit the Worthy. There's a handful of buyback cards that are playable. Change of Heart, I think, is worth some consideration. It's like a weird sort of pacifism almost. I don't know if it's great, but it's interesting. But like beyond buyback, there's a group of spells that you get to cast twice. And I think that those are a great way for white to have access to this, like, not running out of gas card advantage. So things that have adventure are great for this. White has a couple really good adventure spells. There's a Unicorn, there's an Ardenvale Tactician. Those are solid.
Yeah, we got some good ones in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Griffin that gives something indestructible. I completely forgot that card existed. That card is awesome. Yeah. That card is really good.
Yeah. I try to jam that one whenever possible.
Yeah, that's terrific. So yeah, cards that you can cast twice, like Adventure, like Buyback. Flashback, I think, is also... White has some really powerful flashback spells, like Prismatic Strands. It's outstanding.
One of the best, yep, absolutely.
Marshalling Cry. I have found meaningful use for Embolden, which is just a terrible white instant that prevents 4 damage to something, but it has flashback, so you can prevent 4 damage twice. Like I play that card in Furia, and it does work for me. I mean, I don't know if it's good outside of Furia, where you want to cast a bunch of spells constantly and you don't have access to blue, but in Furia, that's a powerhouse.
Hey, the art is spectacular.
Oh, Rebecca Gway. I have a foil Embolden somewhere. It makes me really happy.
I bet that's beautiful. Yeah.
Another way that white is going to get late game card advantage, like not wasting the mana, continuing to have big impactful plays in the late game. Some of these things won't come from casting spells at all. Sometimes these are going to come from like having mana sinks. White has the best invoker. Its name is Dawn Glare. It is a 2/1 flyer that for 8 mana taps all of your opponent's creatures.
Yes.
Like all of them. Not a few of them. All of them.
Yeah, that should almost read 8 mana, target player loses the game.
Yeah. Like it doesn't target. Like you can't counterspell the ability. You can't like hexproof it away. It's just they're all tapped.
The invoker doesn't tap like the other invokers. None of them tap. So if you had 16 mana,
you could do it a bunch. Yeah, like this.
You could do it a bunch.
This can do it during someone's upkeep so that they can't attack you, and then also they can't block. Yeah, so you have the best invoker. You have the best unicorn in the game. Steadfast, I think it's Steadfast Unicorn. It's just a marshalling cry on a stick for 4 mana. It gives your creatures +1/+1 in vigilance.
Yeah.
That's a little nuts. There's a lot of ways in white where you can get this card advantage, not run out of gas thing, without ever really drawing a card. But we do have a couple ways to draw cards as well. Survival Cache does work. Technically, it also falls into this category of spells you get to cast more than once.
Yeah.
Because it has rebound. But
Huge.
each of the 2 times you cast it, you should be drawing a card. So it's basically just a divination in white.
Yeah.
It's a little slower, but it gets the
It's a
job
little
done.
slower. But yeah, there's 3 mana, you draw 2.
Yeah. Ephemerate, another outstanding card that you get to cast twice.
Mhm.
Ephemerate really shines these days because white has a lot of bodies that will enter the battlefield and draw you a card.
Yeah, we got a ton of them in the last year or 2.
So many. We have Inspiring Overseer. We have the Dwarven Cleric, Priest of Ancient Lore. We have
Priest of Ancient Lore.
we have the Doggo. We have the Harper. We have
Search Party Captain.
Search Party Captain's a great one. Yeah. We have a bunch of these, and like not only this is a body that replaces itself, which is great, and then if you ephemerate it, you get more cards, and then
Yeah.
if you ephemerate it
You sure do.
again, you get even more cards. So these flicker, being able to flicker your ETB bodies, like with, I mean, if it doesn't have to be ephemerate, it could be acrobatic maneuver, outstanding at flickering an ETB body, drawing cards. So
And I know it's like not proper to think about it this way when building a deck, but basically like Spirited Companion plus Ephemerate basically equals a generic and 2 white for draw 3 and make a 1/1.
yeah,
Like I'm okay with that in the long
It's
run. Like
pretty
it doesn't
good.
happen all at once, but yeah, it's pretty good.
and like the important thing about that conception is that even if you get them separately, they're both still terrific cards.
Yeah, they're both great by themselves.
They're good. They're good together. They're great individually as well. If you only get the Spirited Companion, it's body that replaces itself. That's
Sure.
Yep.
card advantage. If you only get the Ephemerate, you're gonna get two free ETBs out of something. So yeah, great.
Because there's not a deck that doesn't have a good ETB creature in it.
Right.
At least one.
Yeah. The last flavor of white card advantage that I want to mention here is something that Wizards has been experimenting with pretty recently, and that is mutual card advantage or mutual card draw.
Mm-hmm.
The most famous example of this, I think Liam's going to talk about later because its name is Howling Golem. But before we had Howling Golem, we had a couple of these cards in white. Your Temple is Under Attack is an outstanding one. I mean, I put it in decks because it protects my creatures, but like if I need it to, it can make me and target opponent draw 2 cards.
Yep.
For 3 mana at instant speed. Not bad.
Huge. Yeah, not bad at all.
Especially if there's like one player who's like obviously the threat, and like you and an ally need to sort of like dig for an answer to that guy. That's 4 cards worth of digging for an answer.
Right. At instant speed.
At instant speed.
It can't be looked over. It's so good.
It's pretty great. We also have there's a body that does this. Farsight Adept is a 3 mana 3/3. Then it enters the battlefield and draws you a card, and also it draws an opponent a card. So this is another sort of mutual card draw, and I love that both of these cards are target opponent. Like Howling Golem has its place, and I love it to death. But like being able to sort of play politics with the Farsight Adept and the Your Temple to make sure that it is a specific person who's getting the card. Like maybe the guy who's
it's a very white thing to do.
right. Like the guy who's missing land drops, you can help them out, or the guy, like I said, the guy who's working with you to try and take down the threat. Being able to select which other player gets the cards, actually very powerful, I think, in terms of white card advantage.
I don't think I've actually played Farsight Adept in PDH, but I was a huge fan of it when it came out. I was so sad that it never did literally anything in 60 card Pauper, but
yeah,
probably one of my favorite cards from that set, from Zendikar Rising.
It's so difficult to leverage that ability in a 1v1 setting.
Yeah.
So like
that's true.
I understand that it was very unimpactful in 60 card Pauper.
You know, if it was any other color, you know, if it was red or maybe even blue, I could see it doing something in a 60 card format because those decks are typically faster. But just being white, like mono white, mono white's a little too slow to let your opponents draw cards.
Yeah. But in PDH,
yeah, sure. Sign me up.
Don't-
And it's a 3/3, like that's not nothing.
Don't let Brownie hear you say that. You'll have to just
Sorry,
prove you
Brownie.
wrong.
Right?
Browner's going to build a Farsight adept PDH deck. Just rule 0 the common into the command zone. Like, said,
Kill
what about
everyone.
white? I'll show them. I'll show them all.
Starts smashing the table with his fists. Right on spell table. Awesome.
I love you, Brownie.
Yep.
That's all I have to say about mono white. Until Brownie hears this and starts a conversation about it in the Discord.
Right.
Yeah. We'll talk more about it then. But for now, I want to hear about blue.
Well, blue is blue. Blue is easy. I kind of skated on this one. I got the long straw here. But blue has all the classics, straight card draw for days. Like, we mentioned them before. Divination, Mulldrifter, Deep Analysis, Treasure Cruise. Behold, the Multiverse is an all-star, another instant speed all-star that you can sort of pay on the installment plan if you like. Mental Journey is another one that I haven't messed with too much, but it is very, very intriguing. It is 6 mana for an instant. You draw 3 cards, but it also has basic land cycling. So I think that's a very interesting combination to have where you could refill your hand at an expensive cost or go get a land if you need it. So I like that idea, and it's all at instant speed. Obviously, the cycling is too. Even the, what is this card? Oh, yeah, the Draconic Lore, yeah. This one, when I am building a deck, if it has blue in it, I'm going through my blue stack of commons, and I come across this, and I have to stop and read it every single time. So I'm like, what is this card? And then I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one I don't ever play for some reason. But it's Draconic Lore. It's 6 mana, costs 2 less if you control a dragon. You draw 3 cards at instant speed. Seems good. Maybe I don't play enough dragons to make it worth it. Maybe I should play more dragons to make it worth it. But it is very intriguing.
The thing about it is that, like, even without dragons, I think it's solid. Like, because it's instant speed.
That's true. The instant speed does save it. Granted, 6 mana is 6 mana, but instant speed is huge.
But like the ability, like six mana is terrible for. There's a handful of 6 mana sorceries that will draw you 3 cards, like Thassa's Bounty, stuff like this.
Yeah.
Those cards are abjectly terrible because they're going to take your 6 mana away from you for the entire turn cycle.
Yeah, like, you just wasted a very crucial turn to draw some cards.
And if someone else is going to use, like, someone else is going to be like, oh, you're tapped out, like, now it's time for my huge threat that you can't deal with. But like,
right?
that you get to leave all of your mana up for like counter spells and interaction. You can be threatening about it, and then after that, if the whole turn cycle goes around and you don't need to counterspell anything, you can just be like, whoops, I'll draw 3. Like,
yeah, that is a really good point. You're like, oh, nobody did anything. I'll just draw some cards.
Yeah, that's not small.
No, that is not small at all. That's a good point. Maybe I should give it a little more benefit of the doubt, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not, I feel like I say this 100 times every episode, but maybe it's my 60 card background that I just don't tend to play blue draw spells that cost more than like 2 mana. Because I feel if I do, I'm going to lose the game. But you're right. I think instant speed, 6 mana is very viable in Pauper Commander.
I think that the dragon one has. I mean, I think obviously Mental Journey is better.
Sure.
If there's no dragons involved, Mental Journey is where you should be. The mana cycling is huge, and like if you're gonna pay 6 for it anyway, give yourself options.
Yeah, you might as well have a little flexibility.
If you're playing with Mental Journey and you're like, man, this card is so good, I wish I could play a second one, then I have good news. There's a second one.
Yeah. Another one that sort of blurs the line between advantage and card selection. Blue has a ton of them. Things like Ponder, Portent, Preordain, Brainstorm. They're just classic blue cards. Like when you say Magic the Gathering blue, like these are the cards people think of. But they're not necessarily card advantage in sort of the classic sense because they cost you a card out of your hand and you get 1 card in return. Not positive 1 card. You just get to replace that card. But the power in these cards comes from their ability, the card selection ability, and that is enormous in the respect or in the effect of not running out of gas. In Pillar 3, card selection is huge, even if you're not going up in card advantage, even though you're not +1 or +3 or plus whatever. The fact that you got to choose what card you needed in a given moment is outstanding. And, as is having the right cards to play at the right times. Like blue draws cards. Everyone knows blue draws cards. I think Blue's most powerful aspect is the fact that you can select the cards you want to draw or you need to draw in a given moment. Sure, it can draw you cards for days, like we said, but being able to look at the top 2 or surveil 2 or draw 3 and put 2 back, like all the ways you have to dig, impulse gets you 4 deep. Like those are huge. We have a couple big mana draw spells that are like scry 4, draw 2 or whatever. Like that stuff is enormous when it comes to finding what you need when you need it. I don't know if y'all had any input on Blue. It's pretty straightforward, I think.
My favorite part of Ponder, Portent, and Preordain is that they make treasure cruise cheaper.
Yeah, they really do. They fuel your treasure cruises, and that ain't nothing. That's not nothing, as they say. So, I think if we're going in the order of the color pie, Liam, you got black. That's a pretty good color too for card advantage.
Yeah, the black part of the color pie is kind of like blue, where it has spells that directly draw you cards, but they tend to have some other form of drawback or effect stapled onto them. In particular, black is super saturated with effects like Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood. You've got Point of Discussion for Boding Fruit, Crushing Disappointment, Demon's Due, and that's just to name a few of them. There's easily a dozen of these cards, if not 2 at this point, and you will find them running around every kind of black deck there is, just drawing cards the good old-fashioned way. Black is also generally better than pretty much every other color at utilizing the graveyard. This comes in forms like Flashback, Unearth, Encore. There's a bunch more, but really just taking creatures out of the graveyard for value. It's a pretty black thing to be doing when you're building your decks. And in addition to that, we also have reanimation spells. And like we were saying earlier, card advantage is more than just what's in your hand. It's about what can be played in every zone. And with these reanimation spells like Blood Fountain, Font of Return, Death Denied, being card positive because they come in, they do something, and then they get you a creature back later, or they...
and even like Blood Fountain makes you extra cardboard.
Yes.
That's not nothing.
Those 3 in particular will each get multiple cards back from the yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And continuing on, you've got some robust mill strategies with something that my co-hosts have lovingly called the Harpy, which I believe is Mind Rack Harpy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this card so much. This card is brutal in EDH, let alone PDH. Something they've called the Crow. I'm not entirely sure what that is, and something they've called the Vulture. Also, not entirely sure what that is. Do you guys want to add in on those?
Crow of Dark Tidings and Gorging Vulture.
Gorging Vulture.
Okay, I'm familiar with the Crow of Dark Tidings because it was in one of the 2 Commander Legend sets. But what's the Gorging Vulture do?
Gorging Vulture's 2 and a black for a 2/2. It was only in Core Set 2020 and Jumpstart 2022. It's a flying 2/2 bird. When it ETBs, you put the top 4 of your library into your graveyard. Then you gain 1 life for each creature card put in your graveyard this way.
Okay. Yeah. No. Using effects like that to mill both yourself and your opponents is both great forms of card advantage. Something else that I want to specifically mention is Siphon Mind. I know that Alk has very strong feelings on this, so I'll begin and then he can continue. Or
yeah, I did want to sort of hop in real quick with things like you were saying, Dave, that Blood Fountain, Font of Return, Death of Denied. They get you multiple cards back. I think that those kinds of cards are sneaky powerful. Like they're more powerful than the text on the card appears to be. Like Death Denied is X and 2 black for return X target creatures from your graveyard to your hand. Like, you're not just drawing. Like if it said X blue, look at the top 6 cards of your library, pick the 2 best. That's basically what this is. You get to select the cards you're drawing from your graveyard. Like whichever ones you need at the moment, you get to get them. Granted, the best creature in your deck may not be in your graveyard.
Right.
But you get to pick the creatures you need at that moment, or that will serve you best based on the turn, the board state, that sort of thing.
But hear me out. If your commander is Gary,
that's
it.
I got it. I often imagine that. Yeah.
I I'm definitely on board with everything you said. The ceiling on Death Denied and Blood Fountain, Font of Return is tremendous. They
Yeah.
like at their best, they are wildly strong. But like we have to the floor is also not great. Like if we're talking about like it's it's really easy to get blown out by like casting Death Denied and then someone relics or like
Yeah.
someone
Or someone relics, and then on your next turn you draw for turn a
right.
Death Denied.
Like it's not always
Terrible.
best cards in your deck into your hand.
Yeah.
So it can be, and I think they're very strong cards, but you gotta be kind of careful with them. I do just sort of love that they're like card positive. I love that I think all three of them are instant speed.
Hmm.
Yeah, Death Denied is an instant. Death Denied loops with Hanakami if you're in black green and you want to do that.
I like a good Kami.
Yeah, so that's cool.
That is cool.
The thing I like about black is that it's doing sort of these three separate things together really well. Like the flashback, the unearth, the encore, those are cards taking themselves out of the graveyard.
Hmm.
And like
Right.
the Blood Fountain, Font of Return, Death Denied, those are taking other cards out of your graveyard.
Yeah.
And then the Harpy, the Crow, the Vulture, those are putting cards into your graveyard. And like the way that if you can get all of those like working together on a cycle, you can get crazy good card advantage that
Yeah.
I,
And they're
I
all birds. What's up with that?
they're all birds. Uh Eerie Soul Tender is sort of my favorite example of this because it does all three of those things. It mills you, you can use it from the graveyard, and it pulls something else out of the graveyard. It is everything that black graveyard
Yeah.
resource wants to be doing all on one card, which is
Yep.
nuts to me. Um, yeah, you want to tell us about Siphon Mind?
Yeah. So going back to what I was saying with Cipher Mind, this has a lot of interesting discussion surrounding it about how exactly card positive it is. In particular, in the classic card advantage math kind of way, the kind that Alk was talking about earlier. There's a lot of talk about people doing math on in multiplayer games where Siphon Mind can be card positive. I believe we were discussing up to 5 cards. It also depends how you're looking at the situation. Dave, you're going to do this a lot better than I'm going to do, so I'm going to pass it back to you for Siphon Mind.
Yeah. I have gotten into online arguments with people before who are valuing in sort of the classic modern card advantage, like count how many cards you gain and how many your opponent lost. Like some people do that math for Siphon Mind and conclude that Siphon Mind is +5 card advantage because you are.
How is that possible?
It seems like a crazy number, but this is the math that they're doing. You spend Siphon Mind, so you're at
Hmm.
-1. Each of your opponents loses a card, so that's collectively +3 for you,
Best case scenario. Yep.
best case, and then you draw 3 cards. So you're at +3 for them discarding, +3 for you drawing. You're +6 after spending only 1.
Yep.
I think that that is a terrible way to do the math. And I see
Like that
this.
never would have even occurred to me to do the math that way.
Yeah, I see this. This comes up a lot with also like the card Burglar Rat. I've had sort of the same people argue with me that Burglar Rat is a +2 card advantage because you are spending 1, and each of your opponents discards 1, so that counts as +3. And like
Right.
the thing you have to keep in mind is that first of all, they're going to discard the worst cards in their hand. Like this is not the power play. Like you're not getting their game breaking cards. You're getting
Right.
whatever's
You're not thought seizing the table.
right. You're getting their 18th land, like
Yeah.
a lot of the times. Second of all, if you're going to count each opponent discards 1 as +3, the calculus there suggests that each one of those cards was coming directly for your face. Like if you get 3 lightning bolts and you're like, yeah, I'm +3 on the table, that only makes sense if all 3 of those lightning bolts were headed for you and your stuff. Like
Right.
in a multiplayer format, like it is reasonable to assume that like one of those lightning bolts was for you and the other 2 probably were going to other people's things. Like
Yeah. It's a very safe
un-
assumption.
unless you are the arch enemy all the time and everyone is throwing all of their stuff at you all the time, each opponent discards 1 isn't +3.
It's like to me that argument sort of sounds like, okay, I cast Siphon Mind, I am +5 cards. It's almost like saying Oh, Dave got mana screwed and had to discard the hand size. I am +1 card because of that.
Right? Like, I mean, I guess. Like, I
I
lost a card that you
guess,
didn't, so like, you're
right?
+1. Like, there is an argument to be made that you're +1, but like, it's not a good argument, and you shouldn't put any faith in it. You should,
Right.
you should like examine this argument and be like, huh, cute, and then set it aside and not make decisions based
Cute.
off of it. Like, this is my. I personally, I value Siphon Mind at about +3. I think that you spend one card. I to me, each opponent discards one has the approximate value of you going +1 card.
Sure,
So I think
that's fair.
you spending the Siphon Mind, everyone else loses a card from their hand. That to me is neutral. That's card neutral. But then you probably draw 3 cards. So Siphon Mind is still outstanding. It's still plus lots. You should still play it in all your black decks. Amazing card. I just don't think it's a +5 card advantage thing.
Yeah, it's definitely on the one of the best cards in the format. It's super
Absolutely.
powerful for what it does and everything, but I don't think it's the I am +12 cards in this game sort of thing.
Right. So a lot comes back to the idea that like if you're trying to do this like very classic, very modern like card advantage math, like a lot of things go really squirrely with how you count the cards and like what counts as a +1 card and what counts as you losing resources and your opponent losing resources. A lot of it goes weird. So Siphon Mind,
Like I don't
outstanding.
even I look at Siphon Mind as a draw spell,
Yeah.
not a control spell, not a discard spell, and I want to cast it as early as possible because once you get down to 1 or 2 opponents, it feels less and less good.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Anywho,
the other thing. If you have less than 3 opponents, it gets a lot worse. Or if one of
yeah.
your opponents is hellbent, like that sucks.
Ugh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That is just math right there.
so much math.
Yeah.
And who even likes math? Why are we talking about math?
I don't know. I don't know who would choose that as a profession.
Math is awful.
God, could you imagine teaching it?
I
I know,
I
right?
can't.
God.
That sounds. Anyway,
Having 2 math jobs, like, come on.
two at the same time?
Yeah, golly.
That's madness. Speaking of madness,
Ooh.
did you
Slick.
catch that segue?
That was professional podcaster segue.
This is why I say I'm not a math teacher. I'm a podcaster. Um, Madness. We're talking about madness because, dear friends, we need to talk about how red is going to do card advantage.
hmm
Red is going to start to get a little weird. We're moving away from black and blue have these very classic like this spell says draw 3 cards, so I'm going to put cards into my hand. Like it's
Right.
very straightforward. Red has to do some really tricky nonsense to make sure that it stays relevant into the late game. Lately, we've been getting a lot of really powerful. You know what? No, I segued with madness. We're going to start with the madness. Um, Red has. We're throwing these show notes out the window.
That's right.
Red has a lot of cards that are outstanding as card selection. Things like Thrill of Possibility, Tormenting Voice, Cathartic Reunion. Each of these is card neutral according to your standard math because, Thrill of Possibility, you spend the thrill, you discard a card from your hand, so you're down 2, but then you draw 2. So by themselves, these cards are all really excellent card selection pieces. So you're discarding the card that you don't need, and you're drawing into cards that you do need, you do want.
hmm
One hopes. So there's definitely a lot of power there. If we structured this around the idea of like, I don't want to dead draw land number 11,
Right.
Thrill of Possibility will help you. When you dead draw number 11, you can pitch it and get 2 new cards. And like, hopefully they're not lands number 12 and 13. But like, there's good odds that they're not both lands 12 and 13 when this happens.
Sure.
So this is how we're going to do the card advantage there. But it's not real advantage unless you are really capitalizing on the discard part of this, which brings us back to Madness. Madness is far and away my favorite mechanic in the whole game. I think a lot of people undervalue Madness constantly. Like,
I think you've admitted to being a slut for Madness.
unrepentant and egregious at every opportunity. With a card like Fiery Temper, I think a lot of people are looking at Fiery Temper and thinking, at best, this is Lightning Bolt. It's a single red mana, and you deal 3 damage at instant speed.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are not considering that it's a Lightning Bolt that dodges a discard. When you Lightning Bolt something like this, you are not discarding a card. It's like a Lightning Bolt that cantrips.
Kinda, yeah.
Like, and that's nuts. Like, I think Madness is wildly overpowered in a deck that is set up to like really use and take advantage of Madness cards. Madness goes hard, and so
yeah, there's not a ton of decks where Madness spells are just generically useful because you never know when you're going to end up discarding it. But...
right, you have to sort of like create your own discarding events. Like you have to build around it. But like if you build around it, the Madness goes much further for you than I think a lot of people give it credit for, because it's not just casting the spell cheaper. It's casting the spell cheaper and dodging a discard. And that's how you generate this value. That's how you get the card advantage. Instead of discarding a card that I just don't get to use, I get to use it also and get all the benefits of whatever I was discarding it for. So if you're using the Thrill of Possibility, it stops being card neutral and starts being, I just cast Thrill and a Lightning Bolt, so I'm not actually down 1 here, and I'm drawing 2 cards. Like that's how Red. I mean, it's not the only way Red does it. It's my favorite way Red does big card advantage value plays. So that's the Madness package. The other thing we need to talk about in Red is Impulse Draw. Which is
huge.
First in the show notes, but I skipped it for the Madness segue.
Yeah, you had to make the segue work.
Really,
it was too good. You couldn't skip it.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I was so into Madness, I never even mentioned Flashback. If you discard a Flashback card to Thrill a Possibility, that's also
very good.
Yeah. So you gotta find some way to utilize this discardness. There are other ways besides Flashback Madness, like Unearth. There's a couple of those things. There's a couple other things as well, like there's some sort of Strixhaven Historian that exiles itself from your graveyard to make a token, and there's like Dragon's Breath brings itself out of your graveyard. There's an Eidolon. Every
cast a multicolor spell.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It just comes back in your hand. Like I think those are super underutilized.
They are. They're pretty fun.
It doesn't work in mono red because you can't cast a multicolored spell, but like in a multicolored deck, if you're utilizing these Eidolons, if you're discarding the Eidolons and then getting them back for free, things can get out of hand. I just interrupted my own self again. I got to talk about Impulse Draw. The most basic boilerplate flavor of Impulse Draw we have is the card Reckless Impulse. This is just
I love it so much.
It's so good. This is a 2-mana sorcery. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. This is
clean and simple.
Clean and pure. This is Red's Divination. You get you spend 1 card, you get access to 2 cards. It is in some ways worse than Divination. Everyone gets to see what these 2 cards are, and you only have 2 turns to use them.
Yeah, they don't go in your graveyard or back in your library, nothing like that.
If you don't spend them by the end of that next turn, they're gone forever. So you can't sandbag it, but you can get some really solid advantage out of this. And we've gotten a couple others that are similar. Like we have Galvanic Relay does that, but with Storm, which can get out of hand.
God, so
abruptly,
crazy out of hand. Yeah.
I said at the beginning that I was building 40k decks. The red deck is Noise Marine Cascade Storm. And Galvanic Relay is
amazing.
Unreal in that deck.
Yeah, I mean it's 2 in a red for a sorcery that should basically say draw 5 or more.
Right? Like you impulse draw 5. You only get 1 turn to use them. You
Yep.
can't use them that turn. You have to use all 5 of them on your next turn.
Yeah, so it's dangerous. It's a risk, but golly.
But you get so many cards out of it. That storm on
Yeah.
that thing is berserk. Ripley Vance is another deck that just loves Galvanic Relay unreasonably.
Oh, sure.
We also got Experimental Synthesizer in Kamigawa. This is a tremendous card. It's an artifact that comes in for 1 mana and gets you that Impulse Draw this turn only. And when it dies, it gets you a second Impulse Draw. And it has an ability that lets you sacrifice it to make a body. So,
yep.
Really incredible Impulse Draw effects that we have lately.
And it's a permanent too. I know that matter. It's an artifact that plays into a lot of synergies as well.
Yeah. It's an all-star in Yuri deck.
Sure.
So the thing I like, these last 3 cards I mentioned, these are just pure dedicated Impulse Draw effects. They don't do anything else. They just Impulse Draw really well. The thing that I'm really excited about for Red moving forward is we've gotten a handful of these Impulse Draw effects stapled onto other things.
Yeah.
So we just got in Phyrexia, we just got Blazing Crescendo, which is a +3/+1 combat trick that also Impulse draws a card.
Yeah, how crazy is that?
Oh my god. Like, I love that this is the direction that Red is going.
Yeah, and it's not like +1/+1, +2/+0. No, it's +3/+1. Like, that's huge. That's no small amount.
That's not small. That's good. Yeah. And we also just got both of these cards in the last couple months. Goblin Researcher we just got in Jumpstart 22. This is a 4 mana 3/3 that exiles a card when it enters, and you can cast that card on any turn in which this card has attacked.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's tough to keep the Researcher alive. Like, it's possible that this just doesn't work for you, but it's possible that it does work, and that excites me. The last thing that I need to talk about in Red is, I feel like I've been just rambling sort of aimlessly, like just jumping back and forth all over the place. Sorry, I have a lot of feelings about Red.
You do. It's great.
Thank you. The last thing we have to mention, and then I'll be done with Red, is explicitly the card Faithless Looting. We have mentioned this in past episodes of the PDH Pod, usually in the context of how it's kind of a trap. I think lots of people see the text draw 2, and they see the legality banned in Modern, and they think this card must be generically outstanding. And it's not. Generically, in a vacuum, this card is bad. This card it's adequate card selection, but it's card disadvantage. It's always going to be a 3 for 2, because you're spending it and then 2 other cards to only draw 2.
Yep.
So the reason that it's banned in Modern is because people were abusing the heck out of the discards. They had that the Spellblade.
Hogak.
Yeah, they were Hogacking it. They were hollow oneing it.
Yep.
They had the you have 4 copies of Faithless and 4 copies of what the I don't even know what they were using in Modern with it. Basking Rootwalla maybe? Fiery Temper? I have no idea. They were.
Well, Faithless Looting is the whole reason that Rakdos Reanimator is a deck in 60 card Pauper. Like,
oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
You can do crazy stuff on turn 2 because of Faithless Looting.
Yeah. Turn 1 Faithless Looting, discard Ulamog's Crusher and Dragon Breath. Turn 2 Exhume.
Bingo.
Attack for
Game
8,
over.
Annihilator 2. Like, yeah.
Scoop. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like, in a deck that is specifically and very carefully designed to take advantage of what Faithless Looting is offering, then it's a powerhouse. If you're just kind of mindlessly slamming into decks thinking like, it says draw 2 on it, so it must be good, I'm going to put it into my Gruul Stompy deck. Like,
ouch.
You're not going to get out of it what you want. It's not going to work for you.
Yeah, I don't even like it in Is It Spellslinger decks?
Yeah, I only have it in decks that are very, very intensely Madness flavored. Like, I think it's in my odds maker list. Sure. Like, it's not in any of my other decks.
Right.
Yeah, it feels bad playing it. I feel like
it honestly does.
Yeah. Like, I don't have
It's so
Hogaaks.
weird to have such a powerful card feel so bad sometimes.
Yeah. I harp on this being a trap a lot because it trapped me. Like, I used to have it in a couple of my decks. I was like, oh, it's really good. And it was like, no. every time I played it, I was like, it feels bad.
Yeah, it feels bad. I got to take
I
this
wanna-
out next time, and then you forget to take it out, and you get trapped again.
Yeah. Anyway, that is the end of me rambling endlessly about red card advantage. So I'm going to pass things back to Brad so he can tell us about green.
All right, let's do a little green. Green has got a little mix of everything. I think it's got a couple pieces of just straight up card draw, similar, maybe not as powerful, but similar to blue cards like Bequeathal that you can drop on one of your creatures or any creature, and if it dies, you draw 2 cards for a single green mana. That's good. You just have to wait for the creature to die or have a way to kill it. Also, we have things like Sentinel Wood Readers. It's a 1/4 for 3. If you kick it for 2 and a green, it ETBs and draws you 2 cards. Like, that's really powerful in green. And honestly, a 4-butt is good, and 4 mana is not a huge ask in most green decks, particularly mono green decks. That is not a huge ask at all. So drawing 2 extra cards is very good. If you could throw it in some sort of Selesnya or Simic build where you can flicker it, I guess you couldn't draw off the flicker, could you? Oh,
it works really well with Halar.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yep, the kicker care about her, and then so green, like white, it's got a couple pieces of repeatable card draw, like we mentioned earlier. Rancor. We talked about Recruit the Worthy. Well, we got Sprout Swarm in green where you can make a token, buy it back. And then I know we mentioned Baldur's Gate earlier. We got Dread Lenorm, which is a go on an adventure snake dragon. It's a 7/6, which is absolutely gigantic for 7 mana. It can't be blocked by creatures power 3 or less. And then the adventure side of it, you protect a creature, make it hexproof, put some counters on it, that sort of thing. So very good. Those are card advantage because you can do something with them again, or they come back to you. It's not just here's 5 mana or whatever to get 1 Saproling token and then hope you draw something else. Like, no, it's another buyback card. You can get it back in your hand. Rancor, after you cast it the first time, assuming they don't kill your creature the next time you target it with Rancor, it's just almost like a free spell after that. And then lately, similar to all the impulse effects that we have gotten in red, WotC has been pretty nice about giving us some ETB draw creatures in mono green. Like we've had Llanowar Visionary for a long time. We had Elvish Visionary for a long time. We recently got Llanowar Visionary. We have things like Owlbear, which is one of my favorites. We have Silverback Shaman. Granted, you draw when it dies, but I like to see draw a card put on a green creature because we just don't have a ton of it. And I'm honestly okay with it, with you not drawing the card until the creature dies. Like, not every creature has to have ETB draw a card like in every color. It just doesn't have to be that way. And then sort of like black, green has got some really powerful graveyard synergies. Like Voracious Typhon has Escape, comes back as a huge creature. Moment's Peace, a lot like Prismatic Strands, is one of the best fogs, not just in Pauper formats, but like almost in the game at the rarity it's at. It is crazy good. I think only Tangle is probably a little bit better, but I love the flashback appeal because it's basically like you get 2 spells. You're playing a 101 card deck at that point, even though it's 100 cards. So I like the option of being able to flash it back. And then Tapping at the Window is in the show notes. It's not one I think this is on my list of cards that I need to get. I only have like one of these, I think, and I can't even remember what deck it's in. But you look at the top 3 cards of your library, you can reveal a creature card, put it in your hand, put the rest into your graveyard, and you can flash it back. So that's got some definite graveyard strategies, a little bit of card selection strategies, that sort of thing. I don't play a lot of, I don't know if it's a subconscious choice or what, but I don't play a lot of Graveyard Matters decks in PDH. That's one thing I've been looking into lately, some more Golgari stuff, some more Delve stuff, that sort of thing. So I think Tapping at the Window would be an auto include in most of those decks. Huge fan. Tortured Existence, 60-card Pauper Tortured Existence is one of my favorite decks of all time, and I'm trying to figure out a way to get as close as possible to that in Pauper Commander. So I'll get there one day. I'm sure we have it already. I just haven't really looked into it much. I've been so consumed by Orzhov and Flicker decks and that sort of thing.
I would look at Molder Hulk.
Is that not the Scavenge one? Which one is that?
He costs less. He has a cost
Undergrowth.
reduction.
That's it. Yep. For each creature in your graveyard, he's cheaper.
Yeah,
Yep.
it costs
6/6.
1 less. Yeah, and he's just a 6/6.
Yeah,
For,
I have been
for,
playing the. I've been playing the heck out of Spirit Monger, and that thing is a beast. Like that thing is wild. It's really good. I like playing that a
Spearmonger's
lot.
thick as hell.
Oh,
Yeah,
so thick.
like the thing. I have a handful of like red or not red. I have a handful of green black decks, and like in every single one of them, I start designing it, and I'm gonna like this deck. I'm gonna move away from trying to do like graveyard resources. I'm gonna do something else, and then I
Hmm.
put more cards in the deck, and I'm like, oh, it turned into a graveyard deck. Like it's
Yep,
just
sure did.
it's so easy to just like when you get to the part of the deck where you're like, I'm going to add some card advantage stuff so I can do stuff late game. It's just it always turns into a graveyard deck because black and green are just so good at it. Like
They're so good at it. They're so good at putting cards in there, getting cards out of it. Just
both of it, yeah, all of it. Like
yeah, all of it.
they do the self mill so well, and then they just pull cards out of the graveyard so well. Like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that kind of goes along with the next note here, in that one of the things that green does better than pretty much every other color is dig. Like dig is a casual term for looking at the top X cards of your deck, choosing one, sometimes more, and putting them into your hand. Blue has some of this with, like I mentioned it earlier, Impulse. There's Anticipate, Peer Through Depths, yada, 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 on and on forever. But green does more of it with, like, Gift of the Gargantuan, Relentless Pursuit, Commune with Nature, Commune with the Gods is an excellent one. Adventure Awaits, Scout the Borders, and one of the newer ones that we've gotten recently is Wasteful Harvest, a very good one as well. Some of these mill the unchosen cards, which is great for Green's recursion package of like Elven Cache, Reclaim. Pulse of Marasa is one of my pet cards, one of my favorite green cards ever printed at Common. I don't really know why. It's just it never feels bad. I guess because you always gain the 6 life, and that's just like okay sometimes, even if something happens in between there.
6 life at instant speed is a lot.
It is a lot, and you can feel that it's a lot based on how your opponent reacts to it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like there's always that moment towards the end of the game where like, you're at 3 and your opponent's at 4 and someone is attacking you each for lethal and you're like, I'll survive, actually.
yeah, look at me.
Like,
I just yeah.
I'll survive and I'll put a Wrecking Beast into my hand. Are you at 6? That's weird. That's so
Weird
crazy.
how that works out. I don't even do math. It's just coincidental.
Imagine doing math.
Oh, no, I don't want to.
Good call.
Another super powerful thing that green does that I don't know if you could play any green deck without including at least a little bit of this effect is digging the top of your deck. Like Lead the Stampede, Winding Way, You Meet in a Tavern, Crewfix's Insight, that sort of thing, just because generally they only hit creatures or lands, but it's going to get you what you need. If you're playing a primarily green deck, you're going to need one of those two things. You're not looking for a particular spell or a particular artifact in most green decks. Like you're looking for your land or you're looking for your creatures or both, and those spells will get it. We'll find it for you. I like You Meet in a Tavern just because it's also got the Anthem attached. It's kind of hurts that it's sorcery speed, but I totally understand that.
Yeah. So I like Gift of the Gargantuan and Relentless Pursuit because those are almost always going to be card positive for you. Like you spend the card and you're going to get one creature and one land, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's one that you actually introduced me to a few months ago. I had no idea it existed. It's from Shards of Alara. Oh, I guess it was in Jumpstart 2022 as well. Basically, it's look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal a creature and or land from among them, put them in your hand. Like that's really good for 3 mana.
Being able to get 2 cards out of it is what kind of sets it apart from like the rest
It's
of these.
Green Divination, 3 mana for 2 cards.
Exactly. Like Relentless Pursuit is basically the exact same card, except it bins the stuff you don't choose instead of putting it on the bottom.
Because Theros stuff. Yep.
Because Theros. So I like both of those. I like Lead the Stampede more. Like the other 4, the last 4 you just mentioned, Lead the Stampede, You Meet in a Tavern, Winding Way, and Crewfix's Insight. Those will all get you multiple cards of the same type.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting there, you're like, man, I really wish I could do. I wish the next card I drew was 3 creatures. If the next card you draw is Lead the Stampede, like it probably is 3 creatures. Like,
you ever played against an Elves opponent or Sliver's opponent where they cast Lead the Stampede and they're like, oh, I'll put 4 cards in my hand. It's
right.
cool.
Like It is possible to whiff
Oh.
with this thing, but it's also
Sure.
possible to just +4 yourself, which is
Yeah, it's crazy.
berserk. Like, yeah, I love Lead the Stampede, like you meet in a tavern. Winding Way can do that with creatures or lands. I love
Right.
Winding Way. Crewfix's Insight does that for enchantments, which is a lot less useful, but it's a powerhouse in Rabid Wombat. I don't think it gets
Okay.
played
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah.
else. Maybe Eutropa. Does Eutropa like Crewfix's Insight, or does Eutropa have enough blue spells that it kind of doesn't care? I don't know. I've
I
never
don't
played
know.
Eutropa.
It's so good. That's another card that just is an absolute beast in Tortured Existence decks. Like,
Yeah,
ah,
you gotta build. If you're going Tordex, it has to be either Conrad, where Tordex is your win con,
I
because it
think
becomes
that's why I haven't built it yet. Because I'm like, oh,
yeah,
Conrad.
yeah. I mean, that's perfectly valid. Or, I mean, Molder Hulk is a great Tordex deck.
I can see that.
Because there's
Absolutely, a 2-mana 7/6 or whatever 6/6. Yeah,
like you
that's
get to
totally fine.
run all the self mills so that your graveyard's just constantly full of stuff, and
Brings a
then you
land
get
back. Sure.
yeah, and then you get to you can just Tordex stuff like Grave Scrabbler and like Baskin
Right.
Bootwalla.
Yep.
Like just get cards back over. Yeah, I think if I wanted a Tordex deck, it would be or here's the other option I just thought of. There's
I'm listening.
the Lazatep kid that lets you amass every time you discard. Lazatep
Hmm.
Chancellor maybe?
Oh, the Chancellor. That's the Demir one. Yep.
Yeah, in
Whenever you
Demir.
discard, you can pay 1. If you do, amass 2.
Yeah, that guy. Blue gets you Dizzy Spell, which transmutes for Tordex,
Sure.
and then you
Good point.
can like discard. You can just sort of like if you have two creatures, you just discard them back and forth with Tordex and amass 2 each time. Like
Seems
it doesn't
good. Seems fun.
seems like it could be all right, yeah. And like you still have blue black is just as good at madness as black green, probably a little
Sure.
better.
Yeah, I think a little bit better.
It doesn't have Arrogant Worm, but you do have like Nagging Thoughts and Just the Wind and stuff. Obsessive
Right.
Search. Yeah. Yeah, I would Lazatep Chancellor it up if I wanted a Tordex deck.
Nice. I hadn't even thought about it. I'm so used to Tordex being just a Golgari deck, sometimes Jund, and very rarely Mardu. I hadn't even thought about just straight up Demir.
Yeah, I was thinking like what if you're building the Tordex deck, how do you tutor Tordex? And I think it's just Dizzy Spell. So I was like, what
Yep.
blue black thing cares about discarding?
Bingo.
Gotta be the Chancellor.
Gotta be the Chancellor.
Yeah.
All right. I think that puts a cap on green. We got one color left. It's colorless. Liam, you want to tell us about some colorless options for card advantage?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to colorless, the options are fairly limited, if not non-existent. So we talk a lot on this cast about Crystal Grotto and Takeshi's Dig Site. We should mention that they are powerful sources of card selection, not necessarily card advantage. Grotto coming in, letting you scry 1, Takeshi's Dig Site, letting you tap itself and 3 other mana to surveil 1. But these are both still very good inclusions in pretty much any deck. Ceremonial Knife puts in work in the card selection department by making blood tokens. If you watched the VOD from this past Monday, or even if you tuned in on Monday, you would have seen my Ceremonial Knife, my Ornithopter deck made like 8 blood tokens.
Oh yeah, you
like
you never didn't have them.
Yeah, it was like yeah, it was pretty nuts. Note that blood tokens are in fact selection because they do require you to discard a card to draw 1. They are not just straight card advantage. However, blood tokens are artifacts, and if you're in an artifact deck, you, by our postmodern definition, you could almost consider the blood tokens themselves to be card advantage if you're having some kind of ability triggering with those artifacts entering and or leaving.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so Ceremonial Knife is just puts in a lot of work. If you like Prying Blade or whatever the other one is.
Yeah, that was going to be the one I brought up.
I want to say Goldvein Pick is the other one.
Yep.
If you like those 2 cards, Ceremonial Knife should be on your radar. It should be held above those 2 in my opinion, because while treasures are good, cards are better.
Here's the other massive difference. Prying Blade and Goldvein Pick require you to damage a player. Ceremonial Knife triggers off of any damage.
Combat damage,
any
combat damage.
Yep.
So like I had a game last week where I got the Ceremonial Knife on Norika, and I was getting a blood token every one of my combats I attacked and got a blood token, and then on every other player's combat, like they were attacking me with things, and I was like, cool, more blood. Like,
I'll just block. Give me that blood.
Yeah. Like I was making 2 or 3 blood tokens every turn cycle, and I was just like, cool. I'll put enchantments into my graveyard. There's nothing can go wrong there. Like they can. Who recurs enchantments anyway?
Yeah,
right. Who does that?
Norika?
Who
Weird.
could possibly do that?
I hadn't really thought about the equipment being card advantage, but I think maybe to a lesser extent because it's not completely reliable. But things like Explorer's Scope can be very helpful.
Yeah.
Yep. Continuing on with the colorless, we've got a slew of mana rocks. Bonder's Ornament, Network Terminal, Lantern Revealing, Magnifying Glass that all do some variation of draw a card. Bonder's Ornament very literally says, I think it's 4 mana tap, draw a card.
Yep.
Network Terminal is, you're going to have to help me with this, it's all Network Terminal does is say tap a Scaretiller. It doesn't say draw a card.
Yeah, that's correct.
Pay 1, yep.
Yeah, and when you tap a Scaretiller, you get to bring lands from your graveyard. Lantern
card advantage.
Yeah, that is card advantage.
For days.
You discard the lands to your Faithless Looting and then bring them back with Scaretiller, right?
Yeah. Oh my god, that's just
so
nonstop.
Yeah, you've got Lantern of Revealing, which I know this has an activated ability of 3 or 4 mana.
It's 4.
I keep forgetting that y'all actually Scryfall link these things, and I should just be reading them. So it's a 4 mana activated ability. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, you may put it on the battlefield tapped, and if you don't put the card onto the battlefield, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So again, just ripping cards off the top and putting them directly into play is card advantage. Magnifying Glass is 4 mana to investigate, and we all love clues.
Yep.
And
free artifacts. Nothing wrong with that.
But not least, we have our good old group hug friend, Howling Golem. Whenever this friend attacks or blocks, each player draws a card.
Whenever this friend attacks or blocks, it is so good.
That is the best card advantage in our format.
It's true. Every turn cycle, every turn cycle, you draw 4 cards basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Pretty much. I'm okay with that for 3 mana. Yeah,
seems good.
Sure. Why not? This seems good.
That's all I got for colorless, unless y'all want to add something.
No, I think you're about right. I mean, we have the lands that care about how many times you've cast your commander and you get to scry or do whatever. So I think those are down the list a little bit, but those are technically advantage. But no, I think you pretty well nailed it. We have some very good rocks that we can use, a couple good lands, that sort of thing. You got anything else, Dave, for the colorless world of card advantage?
If we're processing colorless as you can put these into any deck, then Study Hall, very cool.
Very cool.
You can get. Oh, I'm sorry. For cards you can put into any colored deck. Path of Ancestry, super cool. Lets you scry every time you cast your commander or other things that. If we're talking about colorless in terms of things that only go in a colorless deck, Path of Ancestry is terrible.
Yeah, it might be.
Path of Ancestry does not do what you want it to do in a colorless deck. Don't do that. But we do have Study Hall. You can put Study Hall into the colorless deck and you're fine. But yeah, that's all I'll say about that. I think Liam got it all done.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we wrapped it up. Got through the color pie. Got through some card advantage talk. I like it. I like it a lot. We actually do have a semi-related listener question this week, don't we?
Yeah, it's semi-related.
Scooby Drew, patron of the show, family member, friend member, all that good stuff, wanted to know, what is the biggest thing each color is missing in PDH? We're not going to do a one-on-one answer, 3 answers per color. We sort of give a PDH pod consensus answer for each one of them. Dave, you want to tell them what the white answer is?
The thing I think, and as far as I can tell, everyone agrees with me. The thing that we think white is missing most is swords to flippin' plowshares, you coward idiots at Wizards of the Coast. Just give me swords.
100%.
Wizards, like they have this whole deal where they're like, white doesn't get good card draw because it has the most efficient removal. Like, you idiot. Secure the Scene is not efficient removal. Like,
yeah, 5 mana. No.
Blue gets card draw and witness protection and Tamiyo's completion. Like, that's efficient removal.
Raven form and
Ravenform,
all this
like,
stuff.
You're blowing my entire minds here, Wizards, and like not in a good
Right.
way. Like, just give me swords.
No, not in a good way.
Swords,
yes.
like the power level of commons. Like, I mean, I think swords would probably rock the Pauper world, but like PDH,
Yeah, for sure, but
needs
still.
swords. Also, more haste. White needs more haste.
It does. I am very sad White doesn't have a lot of haste without working for it with Crashing Drawbridge or something like that.
It's got that cloak.
And it doesn't have to be huge. We don't need 7/7 flyers with haste. Like, just give me a 1/2 with haste or a 3/3 or something. Like, I just want to have it.
I wouldn't say no to a White Wrecking Beast. I'd be.
No, I wouldn't say no to it.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, for sure. I think for Blue, we all sort of just decided that Blue needs an anthem, like an actual factual just anthem. Like, all of blue creatures you control get this, or all merfolk you control. It's just anything that sure, we have Sunken City requires an upkeep. That's fine. We have and specifically I think we wanted the anthem for our mono blue decks, like Sicarian Infiltrator, Murmuring Mystic, that sort of thing. So I don't think we designed any cards specifically for this answer or had any downshifts in mind that we would love to have at common. Or did you have one, Dave?
I just want a color shifted Trumpet Blast.
Yeah,
I want, like,
perfect.
I
Perfect.
don't want
Oh no.
the new Trumpet Blast. The new, like, creatures you control get +2/+0. I don't want that. I want a blue instant that says attacking creatures get +2/+0, so that you can use this as a combat trick on other people's combat steps. That's what blue deserves.
Sure. I completely agree. I got nothing else to add to that. That would be perfect. Does anything like that exist not at common? Do you know of?
I mean,
it's kind of a specific card, but sounds cool. I like it.
No.
Oh, Liam, what did we decide Black needs?
Black needs more removal that hits enchantments.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny we say this because the most egregious offender of in the enchantment world is Oubliette, which is also a black card.
Well, yeah, right.
So Oubliette is the absolute worst when you're playing a quote unquote casual game and your commander just gets wiped off the face of the earth. And
just like Black to be its own worst enemy.
Yeah, and in particular, Black having more options than Feed the Swarm would be great. Which I'm not saying Feed the Swarm is a bad card. Feed the Swarm is an amazing card. We're just collectively upset it's the only option.
It's the only, it's the 1% option.
And I would like to extend this outside of PDH, but to EDH as well. Black does not have many great ways to answer permanents and or enchantments. It has a couple sitting at rare, but the edicts that allow the opponent to choose what gets sacrificed.
Exactly.
And unless they only control one or two, the thing you want to be gone is never going to be the thing that gets gone. Especially because the one edict says sacrifice a creature or enchantment, so they'll just almost always sacrifice a creature instead.
Token, yep, something stupid.
And while Oubliette isn't a problem in EDH, certain things like Ristic Study are. And it'd be great if EDH in general had more mono black ways to deal with that.
A lot of people were upset when Feed the Swarm came out because it was quote unquote breaking the color pie and all that crazy stuff. But like Black will like rip people's mind apart and siphon their souls and do all this crazy stuff. Why can't it destroy enchantments?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't need to do it every set. It doesn't need to be like a limited mechanic removal or whatever every set, but sprinkle it in every now and then. I'm totally fine with that.
Like once every 18 months, it'd be great to get a new one.
Yep, perfect.
And we are about 6 months overdue. So come on, listen.
Yep.
Where you at?
Come on, Morrow, Gavin. I know you're listening.
Yeah, come on.
All right, Dave. I think Red needs some stuff that's similar to Black, huh?
Yeah. So the big difference between what we want in Red and what we want in Black is that the Red version is in all capital letters. That's it. That's the difference. We need more removal that hits enchantments. Except this time we're yelling about it.
We're yelling. Yes, we're
Oubliette.
demanding. It's not just a request.
Oubliette is still the worst, and like so is Frogify. And like
Frogify's, yeah, Lignify, all that stuff.
Like,
Yeah.
Red needs better ways to protect its commander that aren't just sacrificing it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to better say it than that. It really does.
Right.
Like, I shouldn't have to finagle my deck to hopefully draw or somehow search for a Whisper Soak Cloak just to save my commander.
Right. Like I'm not,
because it's probably going to die before I find it.
I'm not going to put Scour from Existence into Cerkera the Bold. And without
Sure.
it there, I kind of don't want to play Cerkera the Bold, which is wild. Like Cerkera's ability is one of the coolest things I've ever seen printed on a Magic card.
It really is. It's a very cool commander.
And I dislike playing the deck because of how hard she gets blown out by any removal. Like I just want give me
literally any removal.
like just give me Snakeskin Veil but red. Give me a Void
Great would that
Fate
be?
but red. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't have to
a
be a
Void Fate.
good card. A Void Fate would be. Oh well, I mean, I guess a Void Fate doesn't stop Oubliette.
No,
Give me-
a Void Fate counters an aura spell.
Oubliette's not an
Oh,
aura.
that's right. It's not an aura.
Yeah, because it's
Damn, it is the
terrible.
worst, isn't it?
It's the worst. Yeah.
Oh, it is
If
the worst.
give me an Avoid Fate but red that stops Oubliettes and O-rings, and I will. That's it. That's all I want.
That's
That
it.
seems like a big ask.
No, it's really not. Just throw me a friggin' bone here, Gavin. I know blue's
Yeah.
your favorite, but like you like red too. Help me out here, man.
There's gotta be something that red can get that protects.
I know you listen to the show. Just give me this one thing, and then the other 8 things that I'm going to die mad about, and then I'll stop asking you for things until the next
Right.
I'm mad about.
It's as easy as
It's
that. I mean,
so
it's
simple.
so simple.
Anyway,
All right. I think we all decided that green just needs more card draw.
Yeah.
Period. We're not capitalizing it. We're
Yeah.
not screaming it. It's just going on the list of demands.
we were
Yeah, that's fair.
we were writing these show notes, and we were saying, green has a couple ways to draw cards, and I was like, we were trying to figure out what they were. We had to dig deep.
We
find
did, and you got to work for them.
find bequeathal and Sentinel wood readers. Like this is what we're going with here. Like we gotta. That's
It's
it.
not great. Yep,
Not great.
It is
Just
not great at all.
Just
so.
couple more of those.
Yep. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. Maybe a track down, but better.
I would be super on board with a track down, but better.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, I think that wraps up our listener question, and therefore wraps up our entire episode. What do you think?
I'm ready to wrap up.
Yeah, I think I am too. So I'm going to mention a few more things before we get out of here for the week. As always, if you need more Pauper Commander talk or have any questions about the format, you can email the show at thepdhpod@gmail.com. You can head on over to the PDH Homebase's website. That'll take you right to their Discord server. Or you can find Liam and I on Twitter at Pauper Command and Pauper_B, respectively. And as always, you can find Dave as Alcadron just about anywhere else PDH is being talked about. I'll put all those links down in the details. And you might have mentioned it during the pre-show, Liam. We got the tournament coming up, don't we?
Oh, I did not mention that during the pre-show. I don't know, but let me talk about that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so coming up on March 12th.
12th, that's what it is. Yep.
It is, I believe, a Sunday. But March 12th, from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., there is a Pauper Commander tournament in Philadelphia being hosted by our friend Dallas. This is the second one they're putting on. It's the Riches to Rags. And it's a super cheap entry, lots of prizes being handed out, plus there's a Strixhaven box raffle. I think it's Japanese, but it might be English. I'm not sure. But yeah, you should think about attending that.
Yeah,
It'll
I
be
think
fun.
the last time we mentioned it on the show, you were not sure if you're going, but I think you're committed now, right?
Yes, the last one was in October, and I already had a commitment that weekend, but I will be at this one.
Yep, sounds like a great time. I'm super jealous. I expect tweets about it all day long and rubbing our noses in it that we can't be there.
I think I can manage that. I'll tag you in every single one.
Yep.
I'm like 30% jealous that I don't get to go there and play in the tournament. I'm like 70% jealous that I don't get to go play with Liam. Like
Right?
everyone else who's going to be
That's what
there,
I'm
like
talking
playing
about.
against Liam. Like those are the people that I'm like, mad. I want to live vicariously through you.
I mean,
I know,
you
100%.
could go.
I
There's nothing preventing you.
can't.
Why not?
I have 2.5 jobs and 3.5 relationships. I do not have time to go to Philly right now.
See, that's the whole reason you got into math, is just to juggle all that. It's like circular. Here we go. All right. Well, as episode 38 of the PDH Pod comes to a close, as always, we want to give a big thanks to MTG Brad for letting us use their original music for the show. And from everyone in here to everyone out there, brew a deck, make your own card advantage, and we'll see you in about a week. Peace.
Cheers.
See ya.
I brought Pauper decks to the party. Pauper. I brought Pauper decks to the party.